In today's episode, I talk with Coach Dave of the Westmont men's program. If you like our interviews, I would truly appreciate it if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel, or if you're more of a podcast person, subscribe and leave a review on your favorite platform, as we are on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more. And don't forget to follow us on all the different social media channels at discover_CS. Thanks. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Coach Dave Wolf from Westmont College out in California. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Um, you guys are an NAIA program there in Santa Barbara. I wish I was doing this interview in person, maybe at a winery or something. But,
Yeah.
next time.
Next time.
We'll put that
Next
on the
time.
list.
I'd look forward to it.
But let's chat a little bit about the recruiting side for you and your squad. So when is it that you are really starting to talk to players and start to building out your recruiting class?
Yeah. Well, Matt, first of all, I would just say that we're in a little bit of an interesting moment in time, in the sense that after this fall season, we're beginning the transition to the NCAA Division II.
Oh, okay.
And so this question about recruiting is going to take on a little bit of a different tone and format as Westmont makes this move to the NCAA. And so I would want to say that first of all. But as it pertains to our current situation, we are really focusing our conversations on the first semester of the junior year. And so that's really, in our association, in our conference, the timeline that really makes the most sense to us has its genesis in that period of time. And then just to fast forward from that moment, it's our goal to get a couple of commitments from those players prior to the beginning of their senior season. So we've got a couple in the till, and then we can kind of set our sights on the remainder of the class from that point moving forward.
Okay, makes sense. Are there tournaments that are kind of must-see TV on your list that you got to get to each year?
Most definitely. And we're really blessed in so many ways, because not only is most of the domestic talent at some point arriving in the state of California, especially Southern California, but international talent as well. And so we don't really have to venture too far. I think the event that really has become the predominant event in our recruiting cycle and calendar is the Surf Cup. And that's a can't miss for us. We also typically will spend some time at the Dallas Cup, and we will also spend at least a couple times during the year in the Pacific Northwest. That's a part of the country that, for some obvious reasons, we get a lot of interest from. And so I would say that those are probably the three pockets club-wise where we're spending the majority of our time.
Okay. What about camps? Do you guys run any? Do you or your staff work any? How do camps fit into the recruiting process?
Yeah, camps, I would say, are becoming increasingly more important. In fact, I've been in this racket long enough to have been through the Olympic development system, which was really probably the primary landing place for college coaches when I began, which was in the fall of 1991. From the ODP program, we moved in the direction of the academy program, and that kind of took over, and ODP went away a little bit. I would say today the concept of the ID camp is very, very prevalent. We run a number of smaller camps at Westmont. We call them prospect camps. But I have also spent a good bit of time working at both UCSB and UCLA. One of my former players at Westmont, Ryan Jordan, is now the head coach at UCLA. And so those camp venues for us, those are in many ways, those are the big bonanza, to be honest. because players are going to those ID camps probably with aspirations to attract some interest from the coaching staffs of UCSB and UCLA. But those programs are so good now that the majority of the kids at those camps are going to be looking ultimately at lower level programs. And, that's where I'm excited to jump into the conversation.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, and one of my grad classmates is the AD at UCLA, so I follow them pretty closely as well.
Yeah,
That's good spot to be. But
very good.
um, well, in terms of whether it's at a camp or at one of those recruiting event tournaments, showcases, or anything, kind of what are the things that tick your boxes
Yeah.
for players, and whether it's on the field stuff or off the field stuff?
Yeah, no, I think really on the field there are two boxes for me, and the first box is their technical comfort with the ball. The second box is just what I would call soccer IQ, their ability to think through the game and think through situations. And, I think those are a couple boxes that I think are appropriate boxes for the level that I coach at. And I think that there's some very, very good small college programs in this country. I'm a product of the program at Wheaton College in the Chicago area, which has had a very, very good history and good heritage. Westmont, very, very similar to that. But I also think there's some realities that are a part of how we recruit that we have to be honest about. And one of those realities is that the better athletes in the room are oftentimes going to be the ones that are going to be ending up at the bigger programs. And so there's some acceptance of that reality. And so those are a couple of boxes that I think both fit my way of seeing football, as well as the part of the country that I coach in. We have a very, very strong Latin influence in our program and in our program's history. And so I want to make sure that I'm enhancing that culture and making contributions to it.
No, that's fantastic. Well, you mentioned internationals. Kind of, how do you recruit your internationals? Do you have like a goal in mind? How heavy of an
Yeah.
influence is the roster, et cetera?
Yeah. The simple answer is at this point in our history, we don't. I have 25 players on my roster currently. I do not have one international player. In fact, I don't even have a transfer. I have a very, very quote unquote pure roster of your traditional domestic high school seniors and club products. We simply don't have the scholarship resources to get into any meaningful conversations with international players. What will be of real interest to me moving forward is whether or not Westmont will have the capability to do that when they arrive at the Division II level. That won't be a challenge for me to undertake because I'm wrapping up my tenure at the end of this fall. But I will certainly be really, really interested in seeing whether some international arrivals start to come to Santa Barbara.
Okay. Well, we will keep an eye on that for sure. But
Yeah,
you mentioned the scholarships and whatnot, so
yeah,
parents always want to know, okay,
that's right.
what's it going to cost me, Dave? So
Right.
I'm not holding you any to hard numbers here, but can you just give an overview of what the
I sure,
overall financial aid situation
no,
looks
I
like?
sure, I sure can. So total bill at Westmont is just north of $70,000 a year, and that's all in tuition, room and board, and ancillary expenses, books, travel, and occasional pizza, I suppose, can be a part of that too. We have just under four full scholarships or the dollar equivalent thereof. And so you can see that at 70K plus, with about $200,000 in athletic aid money, our awards all come in very, very partial packages. One of the advantages that we do have that many institutions don't have is we can stack our financial aid, which, as I'm sure you're probably aware, Matt, gives us the ability to add an athletic merit award to an academic award, to a need-based award. And our goal at the end of the day is to put together a package, if you will, that takes that 70,000 and starts to shape it in ways that aren't quite so intimidating and overwhelming. I honestly, there are times when I honestly don't know how kids can go to school at some of the cost structures that I see. Now, it is interesting to note that in the NAIA, the maximum that you can give per program is 12 fulls. So we're only at 4. We could do a lot more than we are currently doing, but that's an institutional decision that's made at pay grades that are multiple levels above mine.
Well, and that's something I always tell folks that is a question they always got to ask, right? Is a
For
program
sure.
fully funded? And because I think everybody just automatically assumes that, well, yeah, if you can give that many,
Right.
that's what you give, and that's just
Right.
not it's not how this works, right?
It's not how it works. It's not how it works. And it's not how it works, frankly, at the UCSBs and the UCLAs of the world either.
Yeah.
And if you had those coaches on today, they would tell you exactly the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the school and you've been there for a few years, so you can give us some good insight here. What are some of the awesome things about Westmont that maybe I don't know about just by clicking through the website?
Well, for sure, and it won't take you long to see this if you do get to the website. I mean, we do have a really, really spectacular geographic location. We are tucked between the Santa Ynez Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. We have an average year-round temperature of 72 degrees, very, very low humidity. It is a really, and having grown up in the Chicago area, when I arrived in Santa Barbara, I couldn't conceptualize that there was a place on earth like this. And so that is undeniably one of the distinctives. Secondly, we have a classic liberal arts curriculum. And so that requires students to be exposed to a very, very broad group of different disciplines. And we think leads to the development of very, very well-rounded and holistic human beings. That would be the second thing I would mention. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, Westmont is built on the traditional evangelical Christian perspective of faith. And so that faith component really does permeate every aspect of a student's experience at Westmont, sometimes in very, very subtle ways, but even in the way that we try to run a college soccer program, the way that we desire to treat our student athletes, the kind of language that we use when we coach, the things that we would like spectators to see when they come and watch our team play. Those are all influenced by the faith component, and that's really central and foundational to who we are and what we want to be about.
Okay. Well, in terms of being true student athletes, right? How do your players kind of balance their studies and sport commitments, and what kind of support mechanisms does the school provide to help them with that?
Yeah, I would say the primary support mechanism, and it still needs to be taken advantage of, but the primary support mechanism is just the fact that we have a small, strictly undergraduate student population of 1,200 students with an average professor to student ratio of about 1 to 17. And so we've got a smaller class size. We have a pretty personalized approach to education. And I think if a student is willing to put themselves out there a little bit, and not all of them are, but if they're willing to put themselves out there, the relationships that they're able to establish with faculty members, I think, just greatly enhance the academic experience, take it to a more personal level, and ultimately, I think, to a very, very healthy place. I think we're also very, very clear, as many institutions are, and I certainly don't think we're the only ones doing the academic and athletic combination well. I could rifle off many, many schools that I think are absolutely outstanding in this area. In fact, my younger brother, Phil, is the head men's soccer coach at Point Loma Nazarene University in San Diego. And they are an exemplary institution as it relates to this as well. We're clear about what the priority is. And I'll just give you one quick example. If there's ever a conflict between a class and a training session, the class always wins. There's no conversation about it. There's no debate about it. There's no, this class is in my major versus not in my major. It's just clear and concise and to the point. And we adhere to that. We believe in that. And our student athletes know that as well.
Okay. Well, can you walk me through what a typical week during the season looks like in terms of, when are kids getting up, eating meals, going to class, have a practice games, all that kind of stuff, just a quote unquote average week?
For sure. So, in most cases, because of the fact that our training time is basically your traditional after class afternoon spot, we train at 3:30. Most of our players will be taking classes predominantly based in the morning. So it's a 7 a.m. wake up, breakfast, and then typically an 8 a.m. class, depending on the day of the week, with the goal being that most of the academic work is taken care of in the morning, which opens up a little bit of time to study or to rest up prior to training. And then the training sessions, we put those training sessions in about a 3-hour block, but that's 3 hours kind of in the door and out the door, with 90 of those minutes being on the field for the actual training session. But getting a ankle taped or some kind of treatment prior to training, in addition to the post-training modalities that are available to athletes through our athletic training room. We try not to keep them on the field longer than 90 minutes. We want them to have a lot of predictability to their schedules. We are going at it in some way, shape, or form, typically 6 days out of the week. Sundays is a mandatory day off at Westmont. And then post-training is typically the dining commons for dinner, and then straight to the books at that point. And so that would be a very, very typical daily and weekly rhythm for our student athletes.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the team and during the season and all that kind of great stuff. In terms of the size of the squad, is there a roster size that you're trying to hit every year?
There is not. I think I've got a number or a number range that I've become more comfortable with over the course of my coaching career. And I think that we're currently right about in that sweet spot. I would say that 24 to 26 would be the number that I would identify. Because of our cost structure, we really don't go at all in the direction of a large group of red shirts, for example. We just don't think it makes a lot of sense when they're paying the amount of money that they're paying to come to a place like Westmont. In fact, I would say that our trending is the opposite of, for example, the Cal State or the UC system, i.e., it's probably going to take you 5 years to get through. We're more in the camp of 3.5, 4 maximum. And so we're trying to move them through and get them through. And I think that when you've got a very large roster size, that becomes a bit more of an onerous project. And so we're pretty lean as it pertains to that. And I think it's the right way in our situation. Maybe not for everybody, but I think in our situation, it's the right way to do it.
Okay. Well, what about the size of your staff? How many do you have? What role does everybody play there?
Yeah, I've got 3 coaches on my staff. One of them is full-time at Westmont. and he has a dual role that includes some work in our summer camp program. So it's summer camp and lead assistant in the men's soccer program. And then I have a part-time assistant who handles our strength and conditioning and our goalkeeping. And then I have a volunteer assistant who rounds out the staff. And he's a local coach that loves football and has the time and the ability to invest in those kinds of ways. And so I'm currently in a really, really nice situation. In fact, assistants 1 and 2, this is the 10th year that they've been with me here at Westmont, which is unusual in college soccer, period. It's really, really unusual at the small college level. And so I've been very, very fortunate to have a group stay with me. We've had good staff continuity. And I think the more continuity you have, the more effective a program you can run. It's not the sexiest thing to be able to say about your program, but I think it's a very, very effective way to run a small college athletic program.
No, that's great. Well, how would you describe, kind of your style of coaching, the team style of play, and just that overall culture of the team?
Yeah, I would say for myself personally, I'm orientated in a pretty positive, I would say, affirming direction. It's not that I'm trying to be a nice guy or for people to like me. I'm just wired a little bit more in the direction of getting behind people and encouraging them and affirming them and really believing in them. I would say that would be a very simple way of describing my philosophy of coaching and really my philosophy of leading. In terms of programmatic style, and I would say that, Matt, if you had a nickel for every college coach that told you, yeah, we like to be on the ball and we like to dominate possession, and I do like those things. I admire teams that put the ball on the ground. I admire teams that move it side to side. I'm much more of, if side to side football is east and west versus direct football being north and south, I'm much more in the side to side camp. I like a team that can probe. I like a team that can look for pockets and openings. I like a team that has a certain patience and kind of cadence to its rhythm. That's very, very much, the kind of football that I like, appreciate, watch, and support. And then I would just say on the other side of the ball, I like to put my group as high up the field as I can. And so, we like to play in a very high block defensively, which creates some challenges for my 2 central defenders because there's space behind to defend. But that's that's the way that we try and play football. And obviously, and any other coach would likely say the same thing. The ability to adapt to a particular opponent or game or climate is certainly a part of that. But in its essence, that's what I'm aiming for.
Okay. Well, you get a nice little fall season, but the student athletes are there for a little bit longer than that every year. So can you kind of tell me what a typical off-season program
Yeah,
might look like?
yeah, yeah. And this is where, I've loved the NAIA because I think the NAIA offers some freedoms and some latitude in the spring program that are not necessarily rolled out the same way in the NCAA. And this is going to be a change for us. But right now we have a 10-week spring season. And like, for example, last spring, we were able to play 5 spring contests, and they were all excellent. Really, really good level, really, really good facilities. Again, because of the climate that we're blessed with, we're outdoors on natural grass surfaces at Westmont year round. and really, really fortunate to have the facilities that we do. And we also do really believe that in our setting, because of our resource structure, part of our program ethos is that players have to get better while they're here, and so the developmental piece is really, really important. And I would say that the off season, I think we take it every bit as seriously as we do the season, even though we're not in the public eye as much. We are really going after it with a little bit more of a focus on individual development.
Okay. Well, Coach, we've covered a lot of ground here, talked about a
Yeah.
lot of different things, but I always like to end these the same way, and that's what didn't we talk about? What else is there that you want folks to know, whether that's about the college recruiting process, about your school in particular, or anything else?
Yeah.
Now's the time.
Yeah. No, I would go back to the recruiting question, and I would just say that I wish there was a 4x6 note card that I could produce with the 4 things that every aspiring club soccer player in the U.S. needed to know. I just think it is such a complicated and complex individual journey, and I think it's a really, really challenging landscape. And I think we oftentimes will meet with players and with families, especially when their oldest is beginning to look at colleges and universities, and they just don't know where to start. And I have a lot of empathy for that part of the process. I think it's really, really tricky and really complicated. And I think it's a whole lot better if you acknowledge that and are honest about that at the beginning, as opposed to thinking, oh, this is going to be pretty straightforward. I'm a really good player. Somebody's going to see that and it's just going to happen. That's very rarely how it happens. And so what we've really shifted our focus to is just the concept of what's the best fit. And the answer to that question is different for everybody. But I think it's a really, really important acknowledgement for recruits and their families in this very, very tricky navigation.
For sure, and it's part of the reason I started this website. So hopefully, we'll interviews like this, and we'll keep giving people more information to hopefully make it less tricky.
Great.
So,
Great.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate the time. Wish you the best of luck wrapping up the season.
Thank you so much.
And if I can get out to Santa Barbara, I'll definitely give you a shout.
I hope you will, Matt. It'd be great to host you, and we'll get up to the Santa Ynez Valley and do a little wine tasting. I can assure you of that.
Sounds like a plan. All right, thanks, Coach. Take care.
You bet. Bye-bye.
You don't want to miss the 2023 United Soccer Coaches Convention in Philadelphia from January 11th to the 15th. This convention is the largest gathering of soccer coaches, administrators, and fans in the world. Only at the convention can you attend sessions crafted with your coaching level and desired topics in mind. Presented by world-class educators, our collection of over 200 lecture sessions and field demonstrations will offer every coach something to bring back to their own training sessions. Come learn from Amanda Vandervoort, President of the USL Super League, Anthony Flores, Youth Technical Director of the Philadelphia Union, Becky Burley and Brett Ledbetter of What Drives Winning, Laura Harvey, head coach of OL Reign FC, and Dan Abraham, sports psychologist. More presenters will be announced in the months leading up to the convention. Visit www.unitedsoccercoachesconvention.org to register before the next price increase.